Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Yesterday we talked a lot about what happens if Bitcoin loses 25K and what are the following levels that we need to be targeting. We talked a little bit about what happens if this impulse is already over and the wave count that will follow if in fact we're already about to top. For today's video, we wanted to focus back on the 25K level and then taking a look at the stock market and sharing with you guys what is actually brewing in these markets that are telling the direction of Bitcoin. There is a very important fight that is taking place between the bulls and the bear at this 25K level, where if the bulls reclaim, we're looking for a massive higher high, and if the bears sell off, then we're ultimately looking for a pretty decent drop. This is the moment of truth, and you got to be prepared for what's coming, otherwise we're going to miss out on all of the volatility ahead. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right to this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video, and I wanted to go straight into a little bit of what we were talking about yesterday. Now, in yesterday's video, we were just barely starting this sell-off right below support. And I told you guys that we either have two options here. We're either going to be losing this support level and starting a much bigger drop to the downside. And if we were to lose that level, this would basically be the same as us losing 25K, right? We've been consolidating on top of 25K. We consolidated above it throughout this entire period of May. We've been consolidating on it throughout the entire period of August and September. And we're still just awaiting to determine where the direction is going to be taking us. You guys know the most obvious thing on this chart, as long as we are above 25K, we are holding support and we are bullish. However, the second that 25K becomes resistance, that is going to be the point where we're going to be targeting a much bigger drop. But everything is revolving around this 25K level. We have been unable to actually break down from this, and we have multiple different attempts at a retest, and this goes all the way back throughout even in the last couple months as well. So for the last 4 or 5 months, we've been consolidating on top of this level, really trying to assert whether or not this is support or whether or not we're going to actually end up making a deeper drop. And so in yesterday's video, we talked a little bit about the potential where we actually lose 25K and where we're actually going to be targeting if in fact that happens. And we know that the 618 is the golden pocket based off Fibonacci, and generally speaking, that's where we see Bitcoin ending up bottoming and then going back up for continuation in its trend. But we know that as long as we're sitting above 25K, we're still on support and we're still actually maintaining bullish support as well. We were working on a bearish breakdown, and that was what was going on over the last couple days. This was the attempt at a bearish breakdown. We came back and actually retested the low point that we actually hit over here in June. If you guys remember, we spent basically a month consolidating, and we had all of these different attempts at the 25K level, but we finally got this false breakdown here, came all the way back down to just sub 25K, and then that was kind of our last bear trap before we ended up making another impulse back to the range highs. Now, we've fully retraced that entire impulse, so as of now, this structure is corrective. I can't tell you exactly what the corrective structure is. We talked a little bit about how this could be an expanded flat, but the only way that this could be an expanded flat is if this consolidation breaks down and we go for one more low like this. A low to the 618 being about $21,500, that would give us an expanded flat correction. And it would basically complete the entirety of this first impulse. We would be looking at a 5-wave up, followed by an ABC correction back down. And then this would actually complete our first impulse. Now, this is the bearish perspective. And the reason I tell you guys it's the bearish perspective is because of the fact we have to actually break down from 25K, and we have to make another 20-25% drop before that move would even be over. And there is the potential that this could actually go even lower. If this truly is the first cycle top of the beginning of this uptrend, then the 618 is just our first target. But oftentimes we can actually see a retest of the 786. It's not like we have to go just to the 618. And so that's why I tell you guys that if we do in fact lose this 25K level, we should expect to go through a period of a multi-month correction, which we've kind of already been at this point, being up here. But if we make a lower low, there's going to have to be another period of reaccumulation in the similar way that we've kind of been stuck right here on the top of this range. Now, as of right now, we're still holding 25K. In yesterday's video, I told you guys about the bullish potential was basically we reclaim this entire sell-off and then retest the mid-range point and then get more continuation. And up to this point, that's exactly what we're doing. Now, we can still go through a lot more consolidation here. Even though we're back in the range, this, and this is all kind of the same. We're seeing these quick sell-offs back to the 25K level. Every time we have one, the price gets a short-term bounce. Now, with this with the most recent relief, we saw a quick impulse taking us back to the range highs of this consolidation. We retested the mid-range point, being this little sell-off here, and now we're seeing a little bit of continuation. Now, we're still stuck at the range highs, so if we're to see any sort of bigger move, for example, if maybe we see something like this where we can actually get above the range highs and we can sit here as support, then at that point we could actually be looking at a potential of a short-term reversal. But we got to keep in mind here, as of right now, we're still below resistance of these range highs. And then we still have a descending resistance at that. So we're not out of the clear by any means. What this is going to end up looking like is most likely going to be kind of the same consolidation that we just went through, where we spent all of this time consolidating. This one was at a little bit more of a downtrending slope, whereas this one's going sideways. But the two differences here are the fact that both of these had a descending resistance, and both of these came back down to retest the 25K level before getting that breakout. Are we going to end up seeing something similar here inside of this consolidation that will kind of be similar to what we just went through? I can't say specifically because we don't know. All I can tell you guys is we have successfully held 25K in the same way that we did throughout the last consolidation, and as long as we're above 25K, this is still bullish price structure. The second that this becomes resistance and we make a sizable dip below, then at that point we would be actually looking for a complete sell-off all the way back down to about the 618, back down at about $21,500. So this is what we're going to be watching for in the short term. Now, in the big picture, guys, let's assume that we're actually able to get a sizable move. Let's say that this turns into a retest of our descending resistance. Even if we sell back down, this could turn into some type of an impulse as we hug tighter and tighter closer towards the apex of this descending resistance. And then once this breaks, if this breaks, I think that that's going to be the go-ahead for a reversal. We really have to get outside the descending resistance. If we continue to close below, and let's say that we do something along the lines of this, even if we get an impulse back up to these range highs and retest the descending resistance, if this starts to crumble back down and we get a much deeper sell-off all the way back down to these range lows, and we're doing something like this, we really could be looking for that final sell-off right here. It's all going to be riding around this descending resistance and the 25K level. If we can hold support, you know, sitting here roughly where we're at now, kind of retest this mid-range point that we're at and get a breakout of the descending resistance, that is kind of my signal that we're going to be starting that final leg up inside of this cycle. And you guys know where my target is taking us to 40K and 50K if in fact this is a bullish, you know, breakout. If it's not, we're going to be looking for a multi-month correction. But it's really easy to play this market, guys. It's simple. We're watching 25K. If we break down, we make a big move below 25K, then at that point we're going to be looking for a much bigger sell-off. And one of the things I want you guys to remember, we can look at it even based off this last consolidation. Remember, we were kind of consolidating here for a long time. We had these lower wicks, and every single time we had one of these wicks, we pretty much instantly got bought back up and reclaimed this level. However, once we had a daily close, a daily candle close below that level, that was where we ended up getting confirmation, and then that's why we saw this massive sell-off come in right here. We knew that we did not have any support. This entire move from basically the mid-range point to where our support was, we didn't have any support until all the way back down to basically 26,000. And that's why we saw such an instant drop once we actually got confirmation. So we're going to be looking for the same thing, right? We know that as long as we're consolidating above this level of support without any daily candle closes below, then we're most likely going to be bullish. But the second that we get one of these, a confirmation candle, whether bullish or bearish, that's where we're going to understand. So if we're watching this, guys, we're looking at this in a very similar way. We're looking at this being, we have all of these wicks, right? We have wick here, we have wick here, wick, wick, and most recently we had another false attempt at a breakdown. Every one of these has ultimately been bear traps before the bulls reclaim. However, it's not like the bulls are in control either. In the short term, bulls are still in a downtrend, and all this is a range. This is a support and resistance range. It's a very tight one at that. So nothing is changing in here. We don't have confirmed direction either way. However, if we are to get something along the lines of this, where after this impulse, we kind of just instantly start trickling back down, and we get a decent type of a pullback here and an actual rejection below support, that's the confirmation that we're looking for, in the same way that it played out right over here. That's all I've done, is actually taken this sell-off and overlay it right here, because this is a perfect example of what confirmation looks like. We had all these wicks, but the second that we got a daily candle close back below support, that was where we got confirmation, which led to a much bigger breakdown. So if you're wondering how to play this market, it's simple. As long as we're sitting above 25K, this is still holding as bullish support. Whereas if this ends up being some type of rejection and we get a daily candle close below that level, that's where we're going to see the much bigger drop back down to the 618. So we just have to be aware of that. It's very simple. As long as we're sitting where we're at right now, we're still holding support, but watch for that daily candle close, and I'll keep you guys updated if we do get that. Now, the big thing that we're watching when it comes to Bitcoin is still the stock market. The stock market and the S&P 500, to be specific, is kind of our line in the sand when it comes to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin just follows the stock market. As much as we all wish that Bitcoin was its own thing and it didn't follow any of the conventional markets, it does, and that's just what we have to deal with until Bitcoin gets into a further period of adoption. Now, the big thing to understand here, guys, is with the stock market, not only have we broken all descending resistance, not only have we retested all descending resistance as support, but we've also flipped the mid-range and retested that as support as well. So we're seeing continuation on two different fronts, and as long as the S&P 500 can kind of hold this ascending support, I think that this gives us that potential where we're going to get the next breakout into new all-time highs. We have to remember here, guys, if Bitcoin is going to hold 25K and get continuation, leading us into a blow-off top type of move, 40 to 50K like I've been drawing, we absolutely have to see the stock market do this. Because if the stock market stalls, you know, this gets into a fake out and we break down, we could actually be looking for a much bigger sell-off, and you know, we could go all the way back down to like 4,100 or even 4,000 before that sell-off was over. And we don't want to see this. Based off of what we're doing right now, this is the most bullish scenario. We've, you know, broken out, we've retested the mid-range point. If we get continuation from this, we are definitely going to see Bitcoin make that next leg up. But if this stalls and we see one more sell-off here like this, Bitcoin's going to lose 25K. This will turn into another one of what we saw up here of some kind. And then we'll get a 618 retest at the minimum, potentially even a 786. That's what I'm watching for moving forward with Bitcoin. But as of now, it's super, super simple. As of now, the stock market does look bullish. This is looking like it's going to get some continuation, but we don't know for certain. We still have a few more days, and a lot of what the stock market is doing is residing around the US dollar index. This is a good one that we haven't talked about for a little while, but it does look like we could be in the very real potential where this impulse is actually over. Because, oops, wrong tool. Here's the thing, guys. When we're looking at this market right now, we have a very easy to see resistance for the dollar. And this is kind of been our range high resistance for a while. We've been consolidating in a support range and a resistance range for quite a while, basically since December at the end of the year. The dollar, throughout all of these impulses in the stock market, since all the way over in here, and for Bitcoin, since all the way back down at the end of the year, the dollar has just been stuck in this channel, ranging, unable to really get a breakdown, and then unable to actually break up. However, if the dollar ends up breaking out of this resistance, you know, obviously we're expecting Bitcoin and the stock market to sell off. But when we're looking at the dollar, we got to remember that the dollar's at resistance. Bitcoin's on support, the stock market's at support and has already retested its mid-range point. So if the dollar is at resistance and then all of our other two major charts are on support, that is a very big sign that the dollar could actually be ready for that next leg down. And if that's the case, basically what we're looking at here is a big A, B, and a C correction. And we're going to be targeting all the way back down at about $94 or 94. I don't know the exact equivalent. But we're going to be looking for a sell-off all the way back down to about 94 to 95. And that will be, you know, in my opinion, where we generally are going to see the stock market make that big leap into new all-time highs before a correction. That will be where Bitcoin makes that final impulse like this up to 50, 40 and 50K. And then the dollar will ultimately make that final sell-off. I am expecting that the dollar is at, you know, at a multi-year cycle top, over a decade to be, you know, specific. We have all of our impulse waves. We have wave 1, we have wave 3, wave 4, and then we saw wave 5. And now we're seeing a true cycle top, because you guys got to remember that where we're at resistance-wise is basically our range highs from wave 3, right? And we can see that right here. We can see these two wicks being this consolidation. As of now, we're kind of sitting on this level of support, but we got to remember, guys, that if this is actually the cycle top of a 5-wave impulse taking place from 2008, we're looking at over a decade-long impulse that's coming to an end. And so if the top of wave 3, this level is going to be resistance, and we're going to top like I was just showing you on the short time frames, that is a very big, you know, support and resistance flip, but it's a bearish support and resistance flip. Every single one of these has been a higher high. We've always maintained higher highs throughout our entire consolidation. On top of wave 1, we were support in wave 4 right here, and then that's what led to that final blow off top. So if right now this becomes resistance and leads us to that next sell-off, in my opinion, even if we see a bounce back up to, you know, near the breakdown level, I'm still anticipating that the dollar is going to continue down in the same way that it always has, because what we're looking at with the dollar is basically a long-term downtrend, right? That's all this is. Lower lows and lower highs all the way through. In the same way that every time we see one of these impulses, it leads us to one of these. Lower high, lower high. We're probably going to be doing the exact same thing. This is the obvious trend of the dollar, and nothing's changed. I mean, we're printing more money than ever before, even though it's kind of tapered off over the last couple of years. There's not much that's, you know, strengthening the dollar. There's more countries that are dropping the dollar for the oil trade. There's more countries and alliances that are actually leaving America and going into China, going into Russia, going into the Middle East, and we're going to continue to see this trend, you know, take shape. I don't believe that the dollar is bullish. A lot of people are kind of drawing this specific sell-off as kind of more of a retest. And they're drawing it like this before we make another leg up. And I just can't help but think that that's, you know, false. I see the stock market looking like it's ready to make that next big leg up. When we zoom out and look at the stock market on a bigger term basis, we remove this ugly looking thing. We've already broken out. We've already retested the mid-range point. And if we go to like a monthly time frame, this is going to turn into just another little dip. And then we're just going to continue on in this cycle. I don't care what anybody else says. I still firmly believe that we have more upside to go throughout the rest of this decade. And I think that this decade is going to be a very profitable one at that. Not only for crypto, but for the stock market. Commodities are set to have a massive bull cycle. And the dollar, you know, is looking at a major, you know, 15-year cycle tops, give or take, right? So we're looking at a lot of bullish factors on the big picture basis. When we're looking at Bitcoin, Bitcoin can change a lot because Bitcoin's a 24/7 market. Bitcoin takes a much shorter amount of time to move than the stock market and the dollar does. But you guys got to keep in mind that Bitcoin has only ever existed as the dollar's been going up, right? So Bitcoin has always gone up with the dollar. The dollar was basically bottomed at the beginning of 2008, And Bitcoin was added to exchanges at the beginning of 2009. So we got to remember that the dollar has always been going up in this impulse the entire time that Bitcoin's been around. Bitcoin doesn't know an environment without the dollar going up. Does this mean that Bitcoin is reliant upon the dollar? I don't really think so. I think it maybe was leading up to this point, but this is where Bitcoin's actually going to make this flippening happen. I think that this is the early sign telling us that if the dollar's at a multi-year cycle top, an over decade cycle top, and Bitcoin is at 10 12 years worth of adoption now, I think that if the dollar makes this next drop, we're going to really start to see things hit up on a global scale between Bitcoin adoption, cryptocurrency adoption, blockchain adoption as a whole. And the stock market's just going to benefit regardless. I think that the stock market's going to continue to go up even if it really doesn't benefit a lot because the inflation is so high. Bitcoin is going to continue to do its thing. Bitcoin will outperform all of these, and I really do believe that if we're at a point where the dollar is actually going to be downtrending, and this is the first time that we've ever had this environment with Bitcoin, I really think that Bitcoin's going to benefit more. And that's just my personal belief of what I've always thought with crypto. I've always been a big time believer Bitcoin was the future. To some extent, I always viewed it as kind of like gold in the future. It's just digital gold. And we've been waiting for that point to happen. We haven't ever got there. There's a reason why we're still synced up to the stock market. But if the dollar is starting to crumble, I think we could be at the point where we're starting to see some of those trends actually shift, and Bitcoin kind of asserts itself as being its own form of currency as well as its own, commodity class as a whole. So these are my thoughts. Wanted to summarize some things. If you guys found value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server, see what I'm trading and investing in, anything that I'm buying with my money, links are in the description to go ahead and check it out. Thank you guys so much for the support. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.